Hi, this is take 3. I'm exhausted. My phone, let's see if it works now. I don't know what's going on with this. Anyway, let's go forward. Well, good evening for the third time. It is March 16th, 2026. And please pray for me, guys. I got to find a home. There's no oxygen in this room. I had to rest today, and whenever I stay in this room, I can't even explain. I lose my vitality, my brain goes dead, and I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing. There's like no oxygen in here. So anyway, I think we finally figured out these glasses. So I'm starting for the third time. I'm lost here. Saturday and Sunday. So, Saturday, I was talking to you from Beverly Hills in a FedEx, hiding in a little booth. And I don't know what came over me except this incredible joy and laughter and just joy. It was just funny. And I must have told 50 stories about how I arrived to LA. And then last night, like the total opposite was I just finally fully exposed my Judases. And didn't expect that, but it makes sense. It makes sense because I am moving out of one thing and moving into another thing, and it's like they just came side by side. And I feel like God was giving me a preview of what's to come. My joy returned, my smiles, my dimples. We'll get this all back together again. And so, yeah, it was just really like 180 degrees different. And I'm actually relieved. To finally get that out, and I'm expecting repercussions. I read something today. How did they say it? I kind of turned it around a little bit, but scapegoats, black sheep. It was something on the order of the black sheep become or are the actual shepherds. That makes sense to me. Those of us who've been black sheep and pushed, not should say pushed away, we pushed ourselves away from the toxic families and communities. And of course we get rejected. But we end up becoming the leaders because we don't conform. And I think we'd be in a much better place in this country if people would just stop fucking conforming with everything. And every mass consciousness, in every population, the mass consciousness, the race consciousness, the consciousness of most of the people are conformists. They just do everything that the outer world tells them to do: how to dress, how to think, what music to like, just what television to like, what movies to see. It's like, I don't know, when movies would come out, people, my friends, my ex, they would read the reviews, and I don't know, am I the only person who refused to read reviews? I wanted to see the movie for myself, and I'll make my own review. I might read them after to see if, I agree with them, but why would I read a review of a movie and someone else's opinion before I see it? Except maybe Melania's movie. Except maybe that one. So people, stop conforming. Stop conforming already, Think for yourselves. There's someone on Facebook. Oh God, I sound just like her. There's a funny woman on Facebook who I just sounded like. So, once again, I have all these potential things. I was sharing with you yesterday that I am trying to narrow down my audience, of which I have none yet. I want to align with the algorithms, and I don't want a mass of people. I just want my audience, which right now are artists, sensitive people who I believe get thrown under the bus and misconstrued for weak or easily gullible because we are sweet and loving and kind and soft and gentle, and people see that as weakness and they go for the jugular. But you know, I added today when I was thinking about what to talk about tonight is I really think teenage girls, I've got to somehow get teenage girls in there, because I was thinking about what I was like when I was 18, 19, and 20. Do I want to go in this direction? Let's give it a go. I haven't quite thought this out, but so definitely I married too early. I married like a best friend, you know, kind of like from childhood, and very friendly with his parents. I was like family, and we married when I graduated college. He was 1 year ahead. So I essentially married a best friend, which, you know, was not smart. I guess, let me say what the lesson is first. What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is I had no clue about a higher power. I did have a very strong kind of faith that was like a blind faith. I knew I could make magic. I knew I could create anything I wanted, but it wasn't coming from an inner master inside me. It was just probably a knowing I brought forth from another lifetime. So here I am, how many years later? 73, so like 53 years later, you know, and I consult God now for things. Like, should I be doing this? Is this person supposed to be in my life? You know, what's the highest good here? And I didn't think of doing that. If I had prayed before I got married, I probably would have heard in the universe a big no. But did I listen? Did I ask? Did I ask? No, I didn't ask. I was willful. I wanted a home. This is sad. I'm embarrassed to tell you this. I really wanted a home. I wanted to be able to go home with my best friend and sleep in the same bed instead of departing or separating at night. And it wasn't even really about sex, I'm ashamed to say. But it was, and just wanting a home, the home that I never had that I wanted to make, which I did. And, you know, just not being under anybody's control, which has been a theme all my life. My theme in this lifetime has been freedom. I've always wanted to be free, and I never had the word level. But when I look at my life, and if you read my life, which eventually will come out, you would see a soul that came down to be free in this lifetime, no matter how many situations tried to put me down. I would sprout up through the cement, you know, like that one piece of grass, that one piece of blade that comes up out of cement. That's been my life, is they throw the cement on me, and then I start, you know, growing again, and they wonder, like, how did she do that? And then another load of cement, and then I come up again. And I don't know, I think lifetimes probably of faith and devotion, and probably a lot of survival, and maybe some really ugly things that I did, like we all did. And you live enough lifetimes, and I think you do everything. So I'm hesitating to tell you these stories. Let's see how we do this. The point I'm wanting to make, the moral of the story is I was not in touch at all with my multi-dimensional consciousness. You know, I didn't know from a high self other than intuitively. I mean, I thought I was just a blob. I didn't know I had all these levels to take care of. I lived predominantly on the mental level. I did everything in my mind. And I was very much in my masculine energy because I had to survive. So that's where I spent a lot of my time, in my mind and also in the masculine energy. And I did attract an effeminate husband, which I really didn't catch that either. I just didn't catch it, except for a few things. So I had no clue about the emotional level, the unconscious level, the subconscious level, the imaginative level. So I didn't have access to analyze, my own processes in life, inner, and I didn't have, I don't know, somehow I was better at analyzing my outer life and other people, but I couldn't really access my own. So I want to remind you about a chart that I made before I talk about this, because it's really important. Where is the camera? Let me just go there for a minute. Okay, hold it 1 second. I thought I had it ready. So once again, I think I have the longest podcasts in the nation. Okay, so if you remember, hello, that we have the soul, pure soul. We have the mental level, the emotional level, and the physical level. So I'll leave that up there for a minute, and I'll come back. So let's just take a look at that together again. We have the soul realm, which I knew nothing about. We have the mental level, which is my mind and my thoughts, and where I made predominantly every decision was up there. And then we have the emotional level, which I really had no clue about. Yes, I was sensitive, but I still wasn't understanding, even knowing that there was an emotional level. And then, of course, the physical level I was aware of, and I pretty much took care in that area. So I'm going to switch back to me and tell you a couple of stories about the emotional level. So just remember, soul, mental level right first. Then we come down into the emotional. Then we come down into the physical level. Okay, so coming back. Okay, so when I was starting to go in different directions for my ex-husband, this is very vulnerable, but you're getting a preview of my book. So I knew something wasn't right. I knew we were going, different ways. Even though I suggested law school, it just didn't work out for me. So he started to become this lawyer right in front of me. His whole personality changed. He got extremely egotistical. He was doing well because he was with a great little group, a little study group. He was not a very smart man, but he hooked up with the right people. And I was so independent. I had my own career. I was going for my master's. I was the queen of the house. I'm doing the cooking, the cleaning, the entertaining, paying the bills, and also making the money. I mean, I was running my own show there. And I'm so sad that I had that 50s thing in my head, I guess, that I had to get married. It didn't dawn on me. Here it is, 2026. Do you know I never even considered graduating and getting my own apartment? I can't believe I did not do that. I could have been the CEO of a company. By the time he graduated law school, I could have been a CEO. It was not even an option. Talk about generations of people. Now, these kids, they don't get married right away. They go out and do their own thing. So I wish I had done that. I wouldn't be sitting in this podcast. I'd be running Instagram. I'd be owning it. I'd be owning it. So anyway, so here I am telling you that I got married at 21, and he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, but I was thrilled to have my own home, buy my own clothes, like I told you last night. Everything I dreamed of doing, I was doing, and I loved my career. So, and I was very close with his family, which made separating very difficult. I don't know how to go into this topic. Okay. Trying to think of how to get into this. It kind of has to do with being very sensitive and very psychic, but not understanding because I didn't have those tools. Okay. So probably the best example, the first example I'll give you is there was another woman on the scene, which I must have known subconsciously, but because I didn't have those tools, I couldn't bring it forward. I really didn't know what was going on, but I knew that things were not good. And so when I would go to sleep at night, out of the blue, I started getting what today is called, what do they call it today? Restless leg syndrome. There's actually a syndrome called restless leg syndrome. Now that's now. But back then, in the 70s, there wasn't such a thing. But I had it. And about 2 a.m, my legs were like vibrating like this, just vibrating and aching and cramping. And it would drive me crazy, and he would try to massage them. And eventually I would just, leave the bed and go sleep on the couch in the living room. Why did I go sleep on the couch? Because I don't want to wake him up. The motherfucker is having an affair, and I don't want to wake him up, right? And of course, I realized down the line, and this is under the heading of being psychic and sensitive, I have no doubt that she was in my bed when I was working. And so her energy is not only in him and around him, it's in my bedroom. And so I'm like this. So the point I want to make there is the sensitivity, my sensitivity was there, was picking up all this contrary energy, negative energy, what would you call it? Betraying energy. And something inside me, like God, was telling me something is out of alignment. But I couldn't register what it was. So I would go out and sleep on my beautiful Ethan Allen. 50 years later, all I could do is crave my Ethan Allen brown velvet couch. It was my dream couch. So there I am on the couch. I'm a side sleeper. And, he would come out and say, why are you sleeping out here? You fucker, you know why I'm sleeping out here, because I know what's going on. You know what's going on, but I don't really know what's going on. So anyway, he goes back in, and I'm sleeping on my side, kind of facing my piano. And this is hard to share, guys. I am sharing this deliberately. I hope some young girls hear this. Maybe old girls, too. Keep in mind now, I'm not in touch with my emotions, really, because I've been living in my head since childhood to survive. And I had done no healing work, no therapy, no spiritual work. Okay. So I'm on the couch and I'm lying on my side, and it's having a few nights. This is so sad. It's just so sad to share this on so many levels. So while I have my head on the side, there was water coming out of my eyes and dripping down my cheeks. And the reason I remember it is because I realized I was so concerned that this water coming out of my eyes was going to ruin my couch, because it was a beautiful, expensive velvet. Not a cheap velvet, an expensive, expensive velvet. And so I was wondering, like, what is this water coming out of my eyes and dripping? And it was such a conscious moment that I can tell you this how many decades later. I didn't realize what was happening until about 3 or 4 years later, when I was in therapy and I had come to LA, and I mentioned to the therapist about the legs thing, and she said, there was nothing wrong with your legs. She said, you just wanted to kick him in the ass. She just blurted that out at me like such a knowing. You just wanted to kick him in the ass. And subconsciously, I'm sure that is what I wanted to do. But I couldn't bring it up. I couldn't bring it up and out. So there was an ignorance there. Okay, so now we go to the eyes. The water's dripping out of my eyes. This is my wording. Water is dripping out of my eyes. I didn't discuss this with her. I figured this out on my own. I realized years later, I was sitting in a seminar learning these things: mental, emotional, physical. And I had already identified that I had grown up in emotionally unavailable environments. You know, the home setting, the big family setting, even my in-laws were pretty much, I adored them, but I realized that they were emotionally dysfunctional. They were more functional than my mother, but when I really realized they had their own dysfunction. And my ex was emotionally unavailable, just in general, not just to me. So I'm around all these emotional, unavailable people, and I have no clue about the emotional level. So I'm sitting in a seminar, 30 years, okay, 24, 30, let's see, 26, 36. Maybe 10 years later, I'm in LA and I'm in a seminar room and we're discussing these levels. And this light bulb goes on in the middle of the seminar for me. I remembered that moment when the water was dripping out of my eyes. And I realized I was crying. My body, my physical body was crying and trying to tell me something. And I wasn't registering it. My physical body was the evidence that my emotional state was crying. And I labeled it as water coming out of my eyes. I was so disconnected from my emotions that I didn't even know I was crying. Imagine your body crying without you knowing it. It's like my mind knew, my subconscious knew what was going on, my high self knew what was going on, God was probably screaming what's going on, but I couldn't get the messages because I wasn't trained on the emotional level. So the wisdom, there's so many lessons in this, the wisdom of the body knows everything. So cancer, sickness, all this inflammation and all this whatever's going on with me and my body that's so out of alignment, it's like my body is totally out picturing what has happened to me on the mental and the emotional and the imaginational levels. And I can't hide it. I can't hide the physical level, but I don't necessarily know Well, I mean, I do now. Um, so I was so emotionally unavailable to myself because I was around emotionally unavailable people. There was no one to teach me or model healthy emotions, to identify them. So here I am thinking that there's water coming out of my eye when I realized in the middle of a seminar that I was crying. I was emotionally crying about my situation with my ex and how bad I felt about us not getting along. And to me, this is such a profound example of the inner work, how important it is for us to learn and teach our kids and pass it on. And that's why I'm on these podcasts, is without that information, I could not heal myself or talk to myself or even go get therapy because I had no clue that I was crying. I just thought there's water dripping out of my eye. So I bring that up as another example of what I said yesterday is my purpose, or my only purpose now, is to just alert people, having found out too late. Thank God I found out that God has to be number one in your life. That is where the storehouse of all knowledge is, where all power is, where all presence is. Everything we need is in God's infinite knowing. And now, when something happens to me, I know when I'm sad. I know when I'm thinking negatively. I definitely know when my body's out of balance because it's 24/7. I know when I'm not imagining good things and I'm imagining the worst scenarios. So I just appreciate this little thing. This comes from a lot of spiritual teachers. Eastern teachers is where I really found it first. There's a lot of Eastern spiritual teachers that talk about the soul, the mental, the emotional, physical level, and they have you track it. And my very first Eastern teacher schooled us on this. So I make that point because I didn't know what was going on with my legs. I was pissed and angry, and so my body is like this. I have water coming out of my eye, and I don't even know that I'm crying, but my body was telling me everything. So to me, it's just another example of doing this work, breaking everything down, which we'll be doing, to know, that we're not just this blob that we walk through life, that we have to master every single one of these levels, become aware of them, train them to be more refined, to identify them, to serve other people by helping them observe what they might be missing. Like if someone was standing there probably in the dark in my living room watching this happen, they probably would have said to me, "Barbara, why are you crying?" And I would have said, "What? I'm not crying." That's probably what I said. I would have said, it's like, "I'm not crying." And they would have said, "Well, what is that water coming out of your eye?" And I probably would have said, "I don't know, but there's water coming out of my eye." That's how ignorant I was about these levels. Okay. Then there's something else that I wasn't prepared to talk about, so I'll just wing this one. This is harder to grasp for myself as well. I believe we know on some level everything that is going on. It's just that we can't bring it down. Like we know the high self is telling us, trouble, trouble. What was that space show with that robot? He'd say, trouble, trouble, trouble. If I can't tune into what's going on, I think there was also a level of denial. Some part of me, well, I knew we were going in opposite directions, but I think I also knew about her, and probably in denial, because now I'm making this up because I don't know, but like, what was I going to do with this information? Was I ready to divorce? Was I ready to let go of this beautiful home I just created? Was I ready to let go of all my in-laws and all the cousins and the aunts and the Jewish family circle? Was I willing to, my mother was working for my mother-in-law, was I willing to disturb that relationship? There were so many reasons that I could see where I wasn't available to even consider a divorce. And whatever attachment level there was there, even though he was absent from the marriage, there was still an illusion. I was living an illusion of being a married woman, when in fact he wasn't really participating. But the illusion of being married was actually very supportive. I thought someone was supporting me in my dreams and my goals and keeping the home and all that. It was an illusion. I was literally living in illusion. And so many things are going on in my head to share with you, and it just gets so big. So anyway, there's this level of not understanding the emotional level that I didn't understand when I was crying. I didn't understand why my legs were like this. And I can't believe there's an actual diagnosis now for it. And also a level of denial. There's lots of books that spiritual teachers say is like, God won't bring something up until he knows you can handle it. And I probably was not ready to handle the thought of a divorce. I had just started the marriage as far as I was concerned. So I wrote that under the heading of red flags. That was supposed to be the topic for tonight. Red flags. That we do get red flags. The universe, God, Creator, sends us information, warning, something is not right here. Think of the times when you have gotten warnings about something or someone, a red flag. And think of the times that you listened and the times you didn't listen. How many of us ended up in relationships that we knew we shouldn't have been in? We had the red flags, they were building up, may have even gotten them on the first encounter, and we don't trust them. So it's kind of another concept is my red flag was my body. Like today, I know my body is so out of order, and I am aware of the work I need to do. Number one is get out of here. I know exactly now what I need to heal all these levels. Interestingly enough, the irony of this is now that I have all the tools, and now that I know what to do, the only block is not having my own space to do it in. Being beholden to this crappy food and room. Everybody around me has dementia. I'm not in an optimum environment to do the things I need to do. So red flags. When we do follow the red flags, it's smooth sailing. There's no interference. We move on to the next thing. We made a wise choice. Choose wisely. And red flags. I think I said this somewhere, not on a podcast, but I was in a 12-step program for a while, and they are really actually great to some extent. I was involved with someone. I knew it was toxic, but I couldn't break it. And I did go to a therapist, and he recommended I go to a 12-step program, which I did. And I couldn't quite understand that all these people were standing up and sharing and then sitting down and nobody answered them. I thought it was like weird. You just stand up and you share, and then you sit down, and the next person stands up and share, and you sit down. No feedback, no nothing. But I stuck it out. And so I was doing, like they suggest to you, if you're really feeling powerless, well, definitely get away from the person. That's the first thing. Or the situation that's toxic. No, just stop it, which is a feat in itself. And then some people just go to different meetings, but they actually suggest to do a 30-day or 60-day or a 90-day, where you actually go 30 days in a row or 60 days in a row. I remember 30 days in a row, I was going to Hollywood, to this church, and I shared something about a red flag. And someone came over to me, this lovely woman, very supportive. There's one thing about 12-step programs, which I didn't stay in. I do think, particularly AA, these people really, really support each other. They have great support systems for life, But I wasn't in AA. So this woman comes up to me at the coffee thing. She was very, very wise in her approach. She said, "Can I give you some feedback?" Which is so mature and considerate and evolved. Some people just take your inventory without your permission. And I said, of course, I'd love some. And I heard her sharings, so I knew she was home here. And she laughs, and she says to me, "Are you one of those people that makes drapes out of red flags?" It was like, I had to stop. Even telling it to you, I have to say, are you one of those people, meaning I'm not the only one, who makes drapes out of red flags? And I just burst out laughing because it was true. I could have 5,500 red flags all sewn together that I can hang up on my window and still not get it. And that was the point she was trying to make, is that we all sometimes need millions of red flags before we what are you doing with this person? What are you doing in this community? How many red flags do you need? That was a classic. How many do you make? Are you one of those who makes drapes out of red flags? I love that. And of course I resonate with it. So now in my life, I could see where in my community that I did make a couple of drapes out of all the red flags. I had a red flag in 1988 when I went in. The red flag was in the newspapers. The red flag was public and publicized, and everybody was talking about it. And I was so clear about studying with this teacher that I kind of said, well, if he's gay, he's gay. If he's doing this, he's doing this. And, I don't care. I just want my spiritual work done. And, but that was a red flag. And then I got other red flags. But I was just determined to get my spiritual work done there. So going back to the red flags, if I had been in touch with my spiritual levels, I would have known that my feet were cramping and moving all about because there was something disturbing my mind and there was something disturbing my emotions. Had I had the work that I have now, when that water came out of my eyes, I would have known immediately that emotionally, I'm sorry, but my things are always lopsided, that emotionally I was very upset and crying. So I'm sharing all this, and I feel like I'm talking to a teenager right now, is get this work under your belt. Because once you go out into the world, once you start picking a partner, once you start having children, if you don't have these tools, which most people don't, it could be hell. And it doesn't have to be, because this information exists. It's just that it's only coming out of just a few places. You know, think about how many billions of people are on the planet. How many are doing spiritual inner work? Really? I mean, if it wasn't for Oprah, who really helped turn a lot of people inward to do their work because of the show, when she shifted the show to spiritual teachers, Gary Zukov and Dr. Phil, you know, she had all the spiritual teachers on. Marianne Williamson, you know, I think she helped increase the awareness in people who would have been resistant to go to therapy or to a church. But even with her impact, I still think the population of people doing spiritual inner work is minute, absolutely minute. And what makes it even worse, now that I've had my experience, is a lot of these so-called New Age churches are dysfunctional in their own right. When you really get high enough and you do your work, you get to the inner circle and you overhear and you see this happening and this happening, and you realize, oh, okay, that person on the stage was walking back and forth preaching. Oh, no. That's how he is on the stage. Wait until you get him off the stage, backstage, into his office and with his employees and into retreat rooms in his hotel room. It's a whole nother story. So the number of people doing the inner work is just so small. Myself, and you know, I am a baby at this. I don't consider myself a spiritual teacher. I am not a psychic. I don't claim any of that stuff. I might be intuitive, but even that I wouldn't claim. There are fabulous, fabulous teachers out there right now that I have been following for years. The information is out there. And I'm starting to change subjects now. Who can afford to take $10,000 retreats? I got an invitation today for to go see someone that teaches the Kabbalah. And I dabbled with that a bit too. And I love what he's saying. And he has something coming up in April. How much was it? The seat for 10 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. was $595 for 4 hours. Now, I have never done that. And I wanted to go. And I just said, what? You know, I can't do this. And there was something else that was $1,000. And you know, these coaches are charging a fortune to do one-on-ones, and people are paying it. So, why did I bring up the money? Oh, who can afford this? Who can afford these prices? I put myself in debt, terrible debt, to pay for my classes. I just really clear on what I wanted. But yes, I did do my bankruptcy. I ended up doing bankruptcy. Uh, uh, at some point. um, because I just kept taking them and taking them and taking them. So I just want to contribute at the level. I know because I'm in the midst of the spiritual community, I assume that everybody is. And I judge that there's no place for me. That I'm just going to be repeating what everybody else is saying and regurgitating it. And I have no desire to recreate any wheels here. But I really had to have a talk with myself and realize, Barbara, you may be in the midst of spiritual circles all the time, but the masses aren't. And so, so those of you who are thinking of doing this, and like myself, is there are people out there who do need us, that have gone to a certain level. We may not be up here like Marianne Williamson. And I can name a whole bunch of people that just came to mind. Joe Dispenza, Braden. I would love to see him in person. Greg Braden. He's brilliant. But because I run in these circles, I assume there's no place for me. And I forget that, Barbara, look at all the work you've done. There's people out there who haven't even touched into this yet. And look at all the experiences you've had. Look at all the information you have. And I have to keep reminding myself that at some point, I am going to find my niche. Not at this rate. Not at this rate of just being on my Facebook. It's so good you can preserve the timeless. So I'm all over the place again. So going back to making drapes out of red flags, it just came to me. Here I go, changing. Do you remember the Carol Burnett show? Do you remember that scene? Guys, do you remember? I hope you remember the scene where she comes down the stairs in the green drape with the rod still in it, wrapped around her. It was from Gone with the Wind. And she comes down the steps draped in the drapes. I just thought about that. Those were green flags instead of red flags. So knowing these levels so we can identify which part of us is not functioning and out of alignment. Catching the red flags of those levels. Just catching those red flags of the mental. Okay, I'm not thinking right. I'm out of balance. Emotionally, I'm disturbed. Red flag. My body, yes, I am. This is a drape of many red flags that I just am trying to piecemeal into healing until I get an optimum situation to work with. So, red flags, knowing these spiritual levels. And the other, I know I'm going on and on, so I just want to get one thing in for next time is the highest good. I'll do this one again tomorrow. If I had prayed to God, is this my husband? Is this my partner? And got my answer. I forgot where I was going with this. Oh yeah, okay. So my question could have been, which it would be now, for everything in my life, is this for my highest good? Is doing this podcast for my highest good? I get a yes. When I ask about, of course I know the story, but is it for my highest good to be living here? It's like, no. These are red flag. These are drapes. Definitely drapes. Is it for my highest good to take this job? Is this for my highest good? And I'm changing subjects, this third subject. A protection a built-in protection when you are manifesting something is to ask for the highest good. So if I am, like, I'm contemplating, maybe I should be living in a trailer. Maybe I should be getting I don't know, one of those RVs that I could live in. Is that for my highest good? Or, like, I'm going to this disability expo in a couple of weeks, and I think I've told you, it's fascinating how far the tools are for disabled people. I mean, even little children, they wrap them in these sweet little wheelchairs so they can have fun and be safe, and their parents can take them everywhere. So if I want to manifest an RV camper, whatever they call these things, and I describe what I want, I want a shower, I want a little stove, I want to know it has heat and air conditioning, I want to know that I'm safe and I can put up surveillance cameras, I want to know that the bed is firm for me, and that I have a table and, the whole bit. And let's just say I list that. These like an ideal partner. These are my ideal qualifications for my dream RV camper, whatever they call them. And then when I finish that, it's suggested by many teachers to add this or better for the highest good. And the rationale for that is, no one ever explains the rationale, but the rationale is we don't know what God has for us. We don't know what's for our best. We think we do, but we don't. So if I list all these qualities for my RV, and let's say I forget, which I did forget, what do you call the thing with the electricity? There's a can, a metal can or something that you put outside for the gas. And see, now I left that out of my list. And I wrote this or better for the highest good. And what that does is it opens up me to allow the universe to come in and say, oops, you forgot. I can't think of what it's called. You forgot the gas and electric thing, and I'm going to make sure that you get that. So by asking for the highest good, you're saying, God, I don't know. This is my preference. These are my preferences. But God, I'm leaving it to you to make sure that I have what I need, or even better. Maybe I'm supposed to have one of those long silver things, the Airdrome, whatever. I mean, I would never drive one of those things, but maybe there's something better for me. Maybe the better is I have a Lexus in my front yard and I am in a beautiful home. And I'm limiting myself to some little RV. So when I say this or better, I'm allowing the universe to come in and possibly give me something really, really better. But if I'm like controlling it and saying, no, I want this, and want this, and that's it, you just shut down the infinite universe that has everything. And just to throw it in, if you're making, how many lists have we all made about our perfect mates? I mean, all my stuff is gone, but I had lists. Lists. Just lists. Then I hear someone, I remember, I forgot, another spiritual teacher, she was saying how she manifested her husband. And she left out, what did she left out something? It was something funny, but she left out something that she really needed that she forgot to put on the list, and sure enough, he didn't come with it. I want to say it was cooking, but it was funnier than that. So it didn't work out, the relationship. So the next time she made her list, she made sure she put, let's say he can cook. So had she put down this or better for the highest good, there's a chance the first one would have known how to cook. So you know where I'm going with this. The essence is give it to God and say, this is what I prefer. This is what would make me really, really happy. And if you don't think so, and I know you're watching out for me, and I know you know better than I do, I'm going to make sure I add this little part, this little amendment, like they would say in the law. I'm making an amendment here that I'm opening this up to you, God, to intervene on my behalf and bring forward what's for my highest good. Another point in that highest good is, what if it's not my highest good, given that I am disabled right now, to be in an RV? I mean, I don't do steps good. I really need to exercise and stretch every night. There's not really space for that. So maybe I don't get it. And that's the highest good, is no, you can't do an RV, Barbara. You need a studio with a big living room or big room. So you get the point. Highest good, gives it to God and lets Him take control. Instead of us, holding on to the wheel and going, I'm doing it my way. I'm doing it my way. What I was talking about last night of the New Yorker in me that doesn't know how to surrender a lot of times because I want it my way, with my will and my ego and my perfectionism. And then I don't surrender and be flexible and open. So recapping. Keep in mind the levels. Remember my story about the tears, the water coming out of my eyes that I didn't know I was crying. And it's a good visual because it'll help you remember what happens when you're not in touch with every single one of those levels. And it goes straight into the body. And this is really where a lot of life-threatening diseases come from. There's so much stored trauma in the subconscious mind. And if we're not aware and cleaning that, which is why I'm not dealing with it yet, if we're not aware of how to clean that out, it goes right into the body. And I did have breast cancer, and I was blessed to catch it very early, and it was very tiny. But I knew when I got it, I was involved in a legal matter. And as soon as I was diagnosed, immediately, I have to stop this lawsuit. And I was already at the Supreme Court level. I was actually winning. I didn't even have an attorney. And I managed to take my case all the way to the Supreme Court in Washington. Is that where I mailed it? I mean, I sent them a box like this. And why am I saying that? I knew that it had to do, I was stressed out about the case. And it was manifesting as cancer. And I was so, I don't know if the word's belligerent. I had worked so hard on it. And I was actually winning. And I was actually taking it high by myself that I couldn't quite let it go. And here I am getting these biopsies and getting ready for surgery and searching for the surgeon. And I wrote to one Supreme Court justice. I did my research. Again, who knew about this stuff? But, I looked up all the Supreme Court justices, and in the process of reading about all of them, there was one who's not on there anymore, and I'm forgetting her name, but she had had breast cancer. It was in her biography. So I addressed my paperwork to her, and I told her the truth. I said, I would like to keep this going, but I was just diagnosed with breast cancer. Would you grant me a continuance, which is an extension? And she wrote back, she personally wrote back and said yes, and she gave me a deadline. Well, of course, the deadline comes and goes, and now I had my surgery, and I'm all wrapped up, and, just what a journey that is. And I could see I'm not going to hit the deadline. So I wrote back to her, Susan, I think, I don't know, I wrote back to her. She gave me a second extension. Now, at this point, my everything's pointing to, it's over, Barbara. It's over. You got to let this go. But being stubborn, I couldn't hit the second deadline, so I wrote her again. And I would send her my doctor's notes and to prove it to her I wasn't playing around. And she couldn't give me another extension, which is reasonable. You can't keep things going forever in a court. And she apologized that she couldn't give me a third extension. She wished me well and sent my papers back to me. And it was over after all that work. But I knew in my heart of hearts that I had created that cancer. Not to blame myself, but through the stress of years of being involved in that case. So it's just another example of how the body does not lie. It does not lie. A grown, what is it? Something that happens, an ingrown toenail. I mean, there's nothing that happens in the body that is not related to the soul, the mind, the emotional level and physical level. It is all connected. Nothing is separate. It's that snake I told you about, which is right up there now. You hit one level, you push it out of alignment, and everything, all the blocks fall. So I never know how to end these things. So red flags, soul, mental, emotional, physical level. Remember my water coming out of my eyes. That would really help you remember how important it is to be aware of your emotions. And, and if you're ready to get out there and you've been doing work for 40 years and lifetimes like myself, there's people who need us out there who are not in the position to, or would even do the craziness that we did, spending thousands and thousands of dollars on seminars and letting go. I know for me, I let go of my entire life to do that work. Not everybody's willing to do that, but they should have the information. It's like we are an illiterate society on every single level, and spiritually, we're definitely illiterate. So, I'm on my soapbox tonight, and I will say after last night, there is a tremendous freedom in telling the truth. Even that, getting that dirt out of me that has been in there for 15 years, I know is going to outpicture in my body, because that's been stored everywhere. So tomorrow is Wednesday. Is there anything else I have to cover? No, that's it. So I didn't do a prayer. So I think I told you, people are not going to see this for 10 years. Save Last Nights. That one I know is going to be a hot one, worth money 10 years from now. So what should we talk about to God tonight? There's a really sweet children's book you might want to read. I think it's Oh God, It's Me, Margaret. A little girl, Margaret, who talks to God. So it just came to me. Okay, God, it's me, Barbara, and all my pals. We want to talk for a minute. So, Father, Mother, God, all creation, all universes, all power, all knowledge, all presence, and all loving. Tonight, Lord, we just hand you a platter. We hand you a platter of all the burdens that we are carrying right now. And we know that you don't mind platters. As many platters as we have, you will take. And Lord, we ask you to divvy everything out, do your magic, do your alchemy, place your grace on everything. Take what you can away from us. Release the karma into the nothingness from which it came. And whatever is left for us to handle, we know you will give it back, guaranteed, but give it back to us, please, with solutions, with courage and strength and awareness on how to complete them, what the lesson is, to get the blessing out of it, and move on to the next timeline. And then we'll come back to you with another platter of problems. And so, God, we just thank you just now for all of us, whatever day we're hearing this. And Lord, I personally thank you for the honor to share what you have taught me. And I call myself more forward into your presence so that I can hear you even better. And for me and for all of us, I place our health, this physical body, in your hands to balance, to adjust into the perfect divine image that you have for our bodies. That we were made in your image. And we are so grateful to have a buddy and a pal that we can trust. And we release this prayer out into the wild yonders. And we give thanks, and so it is. Amen. We're cooked. We're done. And on to the next thing. God bless everybody. Good night. Bye-bye. Gotta close this.